Hi and welcome back to this channel. I'm the Spell Singer and this is my ongoing review of the Fighting Fantasy Gamebook series. And this review is going to give you a quick look at this title and book number, a quick read of the blurb, we'll check out the plot, look at the game mechanics and adventure sheet. We'll talk a little bit about the artwork, which I'll run through this video, and then some of my own likes and dislikes, some fun facts, any errors worth mentioning, and then finish with a summary and score. And before I get started on this one, there was a comment in my last video, which was on the Masks of Mayhem, from one of my subscribers, Epistemic, I think it was, and they suggested doing a kind of conclusion at the end of each video that would show all my reviews, all the numbers and scores that each one got, so you could get kind of like a scoreboard and put everything in context. And I thought that was a great idea, so I'm going to take that on board, and at the end of this episode will be the first one, so it'll list everything that's been reviewed up to this time with all the scores, if it means anything to you. But yeah, so thank you for that, and if anybody else has anything to offer or other things that they want to see in these reviews, then yeah, just chuck it in the chat. Right, this review. So this is book 24. This is Creature of Havoc, and this is my fave out of all the Puffin books. Certainly out of the Puffin books, this is the absolute best in my opinion. This is by Steve Jackson, so this is a solo effort from Steve, and we've got this amazing front cover from Ian Miller, who he's back doing the cover, and we've got Alan Langford doing all the internal artwork as well. So a really good combination and mix of talent. Right, let me read the blurb to you from my copy. Okay, so you begin this adventure not knowing where you are or who you are. All you know is that you are some kind of creature of instinct, understanding little. During the course of this adventure, you may be possible for you to begin to control your bestial nature, to find out more about yourself and even learn your destiny. But even if you know all this, success is by no means certain, for the traps and terrors of Trolltooth Pass are many. Are you ready to become the Creature of Havoc? Yeah, so there you go. Now the plot for this book. Now this one, you begin this adventure with no idea who you are or where you are. And you're essentially an unidentified beast. And begin the adventure with no concept, really, of language or reason. And you've got to discover what has happened to you along the way, and a greater plot begins to unfold. And the adventure begins with an extensive background. I think it's about 20 pages long, so a lot bigger than most of these books. But you get a really good background detailing the recent history of the area of Alancia that you are in, known as Trolltooth Pass. An evil necromancer named Zaradan Mar has slowly but surely seized power in the region by building up a wealth of knowledge and a small army as well. Now, Mar is particularly feared as a practitioner of Maranha, I think is how you pronounce it, which is a type of black magic. It involves the transformation of limbs and organs from one creature to another. And you'll see evidence of this in the book as you progress through the journey. Now, Mar learnt this from his mentors in the village of Dree, which is an evil settlement full of witches. And over the years, Mar has built up a sort of dedicated ring of followers, if you like. So you've got Valaska Rao, who's this human. You've got Hannikus, who's like a wizard, who's like a neutral wizard. You've got Thugruff, who's a half troll. And you've got Daramus, who's this undead half-elf. And in short, Hannikus gives Mar the information about the areas, including the legend of Stittle Woad, which is an elven village in the Forest of Spiders that supposedly holds these three vapours made up of benevolent spirits, which bestow the gifts of reason, language, and elven magic. And these three vapours become very important throughout the journey. So Mar, he's interested in the secrets of elven magic, and he manages to steal these vapours, but he finds himself that he cannot actually understand what the secrets are without finding the village of Stittle Woad. And this presents a problem because its village is hidden up high in the forest's treetops by elven magic. Now, a solution presents itself in the form of the galley keep, which is this flying ship. It's like a flying pirate ship, basically. So this arrives from the east, and Mar, and he uses his troops as well to kind of to capture the flying ship, the galley keep, and make it his new headquarters. And this basically is his tool to discover the location of Stittlewoad. This is how he's going to find it. There's little of this background is actually of any relevance to you at the beginning of the book. It's kind of just like need to know. And a lot of it is not essential to be able to complete this book. It's not relevant to you at the beginning of the book as you wake up in this dark corridor and you have no memory of who you are. Other than, you've got this desire, you've got a bestial desire. So you don't really know who you are, you've got no memory. You're not even human, like I say, you're just like, you're instead this kind of large, powerful, unintelligent beast. And this results in some difficulty as you make your way through the first section of this book, which is set in Mar's underground dungeon. Because of this, you cannot make your own decisions. You're governed by instinct. And die roll are used to determine your decisions rather than, making your own choice. And this changes once you find the vapors of reason. So one of those vapors we talked about earlier. And of course, then you get your free will and you can make those choices rather than rolling the dice. So yeah, really good, strong plot. A lot going on and very different, which is always a good thing. Okay, game mechanics and adventure sheet. Now, this book contains a slightly different set of rules than most fighting fantasy game books. So, for example, a hit to you, combat, in terms of combat, does 1 stamina point of damage as opposed to 2. Rather than your usual 2, and it's because of your tough hide, basically, your skin, you can take on the damage much more. But also, when you're fighting and you're determining your attack strength, if you roll a double, that's an instant kill to the enemy, which is... I think Rebel Planet touched on something like that before, but in this, basically any battle, you get a double when you're rolling your attack strength. It's lights out for your enemy. So instant kill. Now, also testing your luck, if you think about it in a battle sense, when you're wounded means that a lucky roll will resolve in no damage at all. You also begin with no provisions, you don't have any money, there's no equipment, you're just a big hairy beast. You also begin, like I say, with very little stuff. Now, Jackson, he loves his clues. We know this from previous books, like Appointment with Fear, especially. And he's got some really great ones in here. There are many clues throughout this adventure that will make life a lot easier for you if you can pick up on them. For example, there's a clue that you get on how to learn that a mirror, as in an item, a mirror was used, or can be used, to discover Mar, Zaradan Mar, the fellow on the front cover, at the end of the book. And the clue is gained from a scroll, and it simply reads, "A world of illusion in which where he appears to be, he is not, and a world in which those searching for him would instead find themselves." So it kind of sounds like a mirror, right? Really clever, but subtle enough that only some people would pick up on it. Also, there's a mechanic used for the hidden references. That's really clever. With typical fighting fantasy books, essential items are always used, aren't they? So they're always presented a problem. So Ian Livingstone, for example, would offer you a choice like, have you got the key with 1, 2, 3 written on it? So if you've got that key, you go to reference 1, 2, 3. And most of them say, yeah, I've got that key, no problem, even if you didn't have that key. And then you go to reference 1, 2, 3 and basically cheat. Whereas Jackson, on the other hand, he tells you to subtract a number written on the key. So you don't get the number, you only get it when you pick it up. So you get to subtract the number written on the key from the reference that you're on at that time. And of course, that prevents cheating. Jackson goes one better. When you find an item which is a pendant, he tells you that when you come across a paragraph beginning, "You cannot see a thing," you can use the pendant and subtract 20 from the number of that paragraph, which again, you wouldn't know unless you owned the pendant. So not only is the choice hidden from you lacking a pendant, but also you have to pay attention and follow the clues that are given to you in this story. Now, similarly, the pendant special ability is detecting secret doors and means that when you come to a paragraph that begins, "You find yourself," again, you subtract 20 from the reference. And also, if you come across to a paragraph that begins, "You find yourself at a dead end," you can use the pendant, subtract 20 from the reference, and it reveals a secret door. But as it turns out, the time you do use that to find the secret door, it's a trap set up by Steve Jackson to upset us all, basically. And there's also this language mechanic that Steve Jackson's come up with, which is award-winning, has to be said. It's really good. If you can find the vapor of tongues, you can learn Jackson's language and understand what is being said to you. Throughout this book, you get all this kind of gobbledygook whenever you try and converse with someone. And until you have the vapor of tongues, it won't mean a slightest clue to you. So this is a really nice mechanic. There are 3 rules to this language, or understanding the language. So firstly, each vowel is replaced by its following letter. So A becomes B. Secondly, spaces between words are replaced by the last vowel. So vowels indicate spaces between words. And then finally, the actual space between words are random. And there are, basically to confuse you, you know. So even with the cipher, it's still not that obvious, and it still takes a bit of working out to understand what is being said. And you need to know, because there are hidden references in the conversations you have with some certain people. So a really nice list of new game mechanics. And that leads on to the adventure sheet. So this adventure sheet here is pretty bland. I mean, compared to a lot of the other adventure books, this one is pretty straightforward. You've got your skill, stamina, and luck, and then you've got your items carried and information. But it just goes to show you don't need a convoluted adventure sheet to have a really good game book. It's just not necessary. You've got everything you need here, and you don't need anything more than that. I mean, the only thing missing is there should really be a box for gold, but then to be honest, gold isn't really a big deal. It doesn't mean anything to you as a monster. So it's just something that's in there. But yeah, that's the adventure sheet. Right, artwork. Artwork for this book. The colour map on the inside front cover was by a fellow by the name of Dave Andrews. That's this one here. And it's really nice, but it's one of these maps where you don't actually gain much. It's just for interest, sort of see how the lie of the land shows. It won't assist you in getting through the dungeon, that's for sure. And of course, for a long time, I thought that the green creature on the front here, I thought that the fella in the chair, I always thought this was you, but of course it's not you. As a kid, I thought you were the creature, this is you. This is Zaradan Mar, who we mentioned earlier. Yeah, so Mar is the third of the key evil wizards. So you've got Zagor and Balthus Dire being the other 2. And the Puffin edition is one of the rare covers that sets the tone of terror and strangeness in this cover here. It really stands out, pervades this book. Internal artwork is by Alan Langford, sorry, not, I nearly said Alan Dean Foster then. Not Alan Dean Foster, Alan Langford, who's adapted really well to this book. And he gives this kind of conventional medieval fantasy setting, which is really nice. And all well rendered, adapted really well to sort of this book, and it really suits the text as well that it's describing. And you can see yourself also throughout this book as silhouette and shadow in various pictures. I'll run a little vid so you can see where this is. So yeah, throughout the adventure, it gives you kind of a little identity. A really nice addition, and it's used throughout this book. It's been done before, of course, showing your hands and your feet, like in books like Forest of Doom and Midnight Rogue, which we'll get onto at some point, but never to this extent. And it kind of just, I don't know, adds a nice little level to this book. Love all the use of shadow work of your beast body and hands, and it's a really good touch. Now, Alan Langford's illustrations are very atmospheric, as become expected, and some really good spooky and striking images. There's an important clue in one of the pictures, which is always a nice thing, you know, to see clues in pictures, which hints at a reference. Really nice touch. And there's also a lot of this smaller artwork, these filler pictures, and they're really good too, just to break up the text. You know, even those are of a high standard. Now I've got a favourite picture, which is this one here. This is a point in the book where you meet the chatter matter. And for those of you that have read this book, you'll remember this guy. So you got your shadow, and you've got this guy kind of like hunkered down with this cloak over his head, almost shrouded in darkness. And the guy kind of tempts you over to him. But like I say, he's all in darkness, so you're not sure about things. But if you look closely at the illustration, you'll notice some evil eyes peering down from the top. And I never saw that as a kid. And that's the chatter matter, because of course it turns out this fella's dead. And the guy at the top, the chatter matter, he's kind of throwing his voice to lure you in. And of course, the option is to either walk away or approach. We all approached in the beginning, and that doesn't end well at all. But really nice to see the eyes finally. I only found out through doing a bit of background checks on this book, a bit of research. You know, when I say research, I mean I went on Google. But when I saw that, and I thought I never noticed it. But yeah, a really nice touch by Alan Langford there. Kind of brings the picture to life with your shadow, this evil-looking guy who you find out is actually a corpse, and then the chatter matter's eyes peering down on you. Brilliant, totally brilliant. Right, likes and dislikes for this book. Now, I love the fact that you're not a hero, but you're a monster. So it's the first time that's kind of happened. I don't think it happened again. So already we're in new territory. It's highly original, and it has not really been, pretty sure it hasn't been touched on since. The detail is incredible with its 20-page introduction, refined mechanics, attention to storytelling, and the artwork is amazing with its, like I say, its shadows, secret clues hidden in the imagery. And at last we get to see what a claw beast looks like, because a claw beast was always referenced in these books, but we never got to see what one looked like until now. Above all, the ending has after such a journey, I should say, because it is a long adventure. It's not 400 entries. I think it's like 450 or something. I'll check that. But it's a big old adventure. You get after a journey like that, you want something epic in terms of the ending, and Steve Jackson really delivers here. You get two sides of detailed glory in terms of the ending, whereby you have the villain backed away in a corner, and he starts to panic, so he offers you these bribes, but it's just a stalling mechanism. You see this in him, and you sever the link to his world by trapping him. Then the best thing that happens is your past self is revealed to you. So everything you've been wondering about since starting the book is explained, but in a really cool, subtle way, in a quite heart-wrenching way. Your memory returns as well, along with your status. So yeah, you get this really incredible ending where it makes it all worth it, and everything's explained to you. So it's much better than those very short paragraph 400s where you just got a couple of lines and some treasure. And in terms of like dislikes, I don't have any, because it's so damn good. Right, fun facts for this book. The original cover of the book was designed and illustrated by Ian Miller. So yeah, like we said, we've got Ian Miller's work here. And this was the last book to feature the Adventure Gamebook banner. And I think in Warlock issue 13, there was an image of a cover of this book that was never released. So the front cover of this issue of Warlock was an advert for the Gamebook, and it showed the cover of Creature of Havoc with a slightly different colour used for the front of the title of the adventure. And instead of the credit Steve Jackson, it just read Steve Jackson, by Steve Jackson. So I'll put the image up there, but you can see like the cover, the writing is in green instead. I don't know what that was all about, but there you go, fun fact. We've also got a quote from Steve Jackson for this Creature of Havoc. And he said basically that this was another attempt at doing something different. Now, the setting the reader of a monster instead of a hero, which obviously he did, and he also goes on to say that the feedback they were getting from readers is that they liked the adventure to be tough. So, turns out readers found it more difficult than he thought. Because it wasn't everyone's cup of tea. It was a tough book. But yeah, we asked for it and we got it. Now, the backstory also of Zarad Mar was elaborated on in later books, where Mar was one of 3 pupils, I think it was, of an evil trilogy, basically, of villains called Volgera Darkstorm, and the other 2 being obviously Balthus Dire from Citadel of Chaos and Zagor from Warlock Firetop Mountain. Now, after Darkstorm grew wary of their increasing powers, these three pupils, he sort of tired of learning, basically, and they killed their teacher by a carefully disguised Rain of Knives spell. So a bit of lore for you. Errors. Now, unfortunately, with a book this complicated, there was always going to be some, and there's a couple of game breakers in there as well, which is a bit of a shame, but they were fixed in the Wizard editions, I believe. And subsequently, the errors turned up again in Scholastic editions because, of course, Scholastic used the source material. So. But yeah, some of the game breakers in there, there's a few minor errors, but around sort of deciphering the Jackson's language that he came up with. There's a couple of minor things there. There's a couple of places where signposts are pointing the wrong way. But yeah, a couple of game breakers that were later fixed, so that's good. But in particular, there's a reference 37, which teleports you to an earlier section of the dungeon that you just escaped from. However, it's possible to have an encounter with Daramus in this area remotely via crystal ball. And even though Daramus has to be killed for you to reach reference 37 in the first place. So yeah, that was a bit odd. And there's another error on reference 213. It's where a secret passage trigger phrase is needed to allow you to complete the adventure. It does not begin the entry as it was supposed to. And this was a big flaw because it upset a lot of people. Leaving you to guess basically whether the pendant works there or not, allowing you to then turn to reference 233 and progress. So what it says is you reach a dead end. So that was his phrase that he was going to use. But it should have read, you find yourself. So a subtle difference, but enough to sort of cause an issue. And this was changed, like I say, for the Wizard books. But it was also suggested that it wasn't really an error, and it was Steve Jackson, a bit of a gambit from Steve Jackson, which I don't know if I believe. I think that was an error. The final one I was going to mention was when you face Thuggruff, if you bring his stamina to 4 or less, he blows a whistle and you're killed by his minions in reference 305. But remember, if you roll a double when you're in combat, that's an instant death. So how's he going to blow the whistle if he's dead? Anyway, just a couple of little things to mention. Right, let's summarise and give this book a score out of 10. So, it took me, and I don't mind admitting this, it took me 30 plus read-throughs, attempts to beat this book. It's so difficult, but rewarding. The book has some fantastic ideas. The core idea is intriguing in itself, departure from the typical fighting fantasy norm. Rather than being an adventure, you're obviously a monster. You're created by dark magic, trying to understand how you came into existence and find your place in this world. It feels like Steve Jackson was playing with the conventions of gamebooks, big gamebooks themselves. And your character is kind of clueless about its past, just as you, the player, are often left to decide on your character's backstory for the other fighting fantasy books. Now, to begin with, you kind of lack the free will, so you cannot actually choose which paragraphs to turn to. Instead, you're being forced to let the die roll decide. So it's a tough book with a tough final twist and at the end and a truly award-winning ending. But yeah, lots of really tricky parts to this book. And the first half of the book is Dust Dungeon. And that in itself is hard. But getting out of that, once you get out, it's so well described. You can almost like, once you get out, you get the fresh air hits you, and it's like you're really there, finally getting out of the dungeon. But of course, you're only halfway to finding the villain and the galley keep. The initial act begins with you waking up, sort of devoid of identity or awareness or even who or what you're meant to be. So it's almost like being born. Then begins the voyage of self-discovery, and you're basically slowly becoming more and more sentient as the book progresses. You pick up on snippets of information along the way, to help you find your goal, which turns out to be one of vengeance, and discover your true identity. This book has the most satisfying plot of any fighting fantasy book that I've ever read. It's absolutely amazing. To begin with, you think it's like, it could be a standard fighting fantasy book, but it's very quickly corrects you in that respect. It is difficult to put down, and you'll immediately want to find out what's going to happen and what's going to be around each corner. The sheer interest here is a sign of successful gamebook. Coupled with a good story, the fact that you want to discover more of what it has to offer. With a paragraph count of 460, so I did say 450, it's 460. This is almost, or amongst, the longest of the series, certainly in the Puffin range. For an adventure itself, it's an epic scale. And this book has two halves, like I mentioned, dungeon and then outside the dungeon. And it leaves you feeling exhilarated once you finally get to the end. The dungeon section takes up quite a large chunk of the book. And as a kid, I could never get out. I couldn't get out into the outside world. I never actually finished this. It was only as an adult that I was able to complete it. Now, the beginning is where you feel most like a monster, but with the suggestion that you might not have always been one, which is really intriguing to begin with. You start by having kind of like these animalized instincts, even decisions are on your route to take, put at the mercy of like a dice roll, like I mentioned. But this kind of develops as you progress reason. And then later, the power of communication, the ability to use items to your advantage. Even in the final stages of the book, you still cannot quite curb your animal instincts, in spite of your development, from these vapors, these bottled vapors that you find. So you're still expected to play the part of an animal. Escaping the dungeon is really tough and relies on you beating all these puzzles that Jackson's put in for you, getting that language code and the hidden sections with that pendant. There's not many items, but those that are really important. And then once again, you get the power of understanding. You're told how to decipher these codes. The important language clues come after you have learned the code, and obviously you need to work out what each message means, otherwise you'll miss all these key points and certain references that are in the conversation that you're having. And the hidden sections are similar to House of Hell. Remember we reviewed House of Hell, An Appointment with Fear, so you kind of get these sort of knockbacks to his previous books. But in the dungeon, there are 4 stages where hidden sections can be found, but only 3 use the word prompts that you're told to watch out for. So it's very tricky. You've got to really be alert and look out for the clues as they're given to you. There are particularly nasty points like the red herrings that are thrown at you, the maze and the path leading back into the dungeon, which is nasty. There are places to avoid like the town of Dree, don't go there, the forest of spiders and the bilge water. The whole concept of this book is one huge puzzle that gradually reveals itself over multiple playthroughs and becomes all the more rewarding for each additional piece that you discover. The structural genius of this adventure gamebook is with the companion that you pick up later on. His name's Grog. He's a half-orc. And those of you that met him realise how important he is. You will fail this adventure if you do not find him. So an interesting technique is used with alternate paragraphing comes into play. So when he's with you, when Grog is with you, rather than do you have a companion, do you have Grog with you, like in all the other books, instead you're asked to read sections that end in 7 followed with a 7 in it, followed by -52. So you -52 from your reference and you'll get some input from Grog, and it's really important. what he has to tell you. So this normally means that, you know, Grog has some advice or how to avoid a peril, but he also eventually means he gives his life for you. So yeah, so he dies for you. So yeah, when you get to that point, if Grog's not with you, it's curtains. Also, beware of the labyrinthian sort of looping design that Jackson loves in this book. Endless loop of paragraphs, all of which will eventually cause death from stamina loss rather than reaching an instant death, like an insta-death paragraph. One is a never-ending series of combats with a fella called Quimmel Bone. And yeah, that's one, and he basically resurrects every time you kill him, and it's an ending loop. You can't get out of it. The second one is an endless queue of chaos warriors who come at you one after another, whilst the third is a sort of like an attempt to so it's one and two examples, but the third is sort of like an attempt to break down a door to the outside world, and it takes you a while to realise that you're stuck in an infinite loop until you sort of pick up on these references that are showing up again and again. So yeah, quite a cool little mechanic. It's easily one of the hardest fighting fantasy books. In my opinion, structurally, this book is a great achievement. It's no surprise that Steve Jackson would not write another fighting fantasy book for the Puffin series. This was his last one. He wrote others for Scholastic, but I don't know, maybe he wore himself out on this one. Because yeah, last one for the franchise. I assume he decided to quit while he was ahead. But yeah, it's technically brilliant. It's revolutionary in terms of how to design a game book. It tells an excellent story. It's very compelling to play and read. There's no doubt that Jackson succeeded in creating a harder game book than the average one. And in my opinion, he's written one of the best, in Creature of Havoc. It really is. The idle exploration of this book will only reveal so much, so you need to map it, you've got to take notes, you've got to double check your references to learn the full story and then eventually triumph. It's a standard fantasy theme on the surface, but filtered through a sort of dark, grimy world view of a mad necromancer, transformed heroes, an untrustworthy world of shifting alliances. There's a lot to go on. There's a lot happening in this book. I can hardly recommend it to anyone really who loves game books. I can't recommend it for beginners because of the tricks and the difficulty level that it involves. But if you put in the work, you should really appreciate the completion of Creature of Havoc. So, all summed up, it has to have a 9 out of 10. I only didn't give it a 10 because of the Game Breaker issue, the Game Breaker errors. But apart from that, yeah, it's just brilliant. 9 out of 10 for this book. It's one of the best and my favourite. So yeah. So that's my review of Creature of Havoc. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then hit the like, put some comments in there. Tell me your thoughts. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, why not? And maybe share it with someone who might enjoy this review. And the next book we're going to review is Beneath Nightmare Castle. So I'll catch you in that review.